Well, darling, you do look stunning. You look divine, darling.
Oh, Ethel, what is all this?
And during that time, I consider the years I spent on I Love Lucy to be perhaps the biggest ripoff of my career.
For decades, I Love Lucy has been remembered as one of the most groundbreaking and beloved sitcoms in television history. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz became household names, their slapstick antics defining an era of comedy. But behind the laughter and perfectly timed punchlines, not everything was as joyful as it seemed. Vivian Vance, who played Ethel Mertz, Lucy's quirky neighbor and partner in crime, lived a very different reality off camera. While fans adored the chemistry between Lucy and Ethel, Vance carried secrets about her time on the show that she kept hidden for years. From personal struggles to tensions with her co-stars and the immense pressure of working on a pioneering series, Vivian's story is far more complex than the world realized. Now, decades later, her candid reflections have come to light, finally, revealing what really happened behind the scenes of I Love Lucy. And trust me, the truth will both shock and move you, because the woman who made us laugh so effortlessly was fighting battles that very few ever saw. Before she became a household name as Ethel Mertz, Vivian Vance was a struggling actress whose career path was anything but easy. Born Vivian Roberta Jones in 1909 in Cherryvale, Kansas, she grew up in a conservative household where pursuing a career in acting was seen as frivolous, even rebellious. But Vivian was determined to follow her passion. She eventually moved to New York City, where she honed her skills in stage productions, often playing secondary roles that gave her little recognition. It was in the theater where Vivian developed her sharp comedic timing and resilience. She was no stranger to rejection. Casting directors often dismissed her for not fitting the glamorous Hollywood mold. While other actresses were typecast as ingenues or femme fatales, Vivian had a different kind of presence. She could play relatable, down-to-earth characters with a natural charm that made audiences feel at ease. Unfortunately, in an industry that prized beauty above all, that very relatability often worked against her. By the late 1940s, Vance had carved out a modest career in theater, with appearances in Broadway shows like Music in the Air and Voice of the Turtle. But despite her talents, she struggled to make ends meet and often worried that her big break would never come. At times, she even considered leaving show business altogether. That all changed when she crossed paths with Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, who were casting for their new television project, I Love Lucy. At the time, television was still considered a risky medium, with few believing it would last. But Lucy and Desi had a vision for something revolutionary, a sitcom built on a married couple's comedic misadventures, performed live in front of an audience. To balance Lucy's over-the-top antics, they needed the perfect sidekick, someone who could ground the show while still delivering laughs. Enter Vivian Vance. When she auditioned for the role of Ethel Mertz, the character was originally written as a frumpy, older neighbor who contrasted Lucy's glamorous persona. But Vivian brought something different to the table. Her performance was sharp, witty, and filled with an authenticity that no one expected. Lucille Ball immediately recognized her potential. In fact, Lucy pushed for Vance's casting, insisting that she had the perfect energy to play Ethel. Desi agreed, and just like that, Vivian landed the role that would define her career. But with the opportunity came challenges. At first, Vivian worried that playing a frumpy housewife would typecast her permanently. She had worked hard in theater to be seen as versatile, and now she was about to step into a role that downplayed her natural beauty and intelligence. Yet despite these concerns, she embraced the part. What she didn't anticipate was just how iconic Ethel would become, or how the role would shape her life both positively and painfully. When I Love Lucy premiered in 1951, the chemistry between Lucy and Ethel became an instant sensation. Audiences adored their antics, from cooking disasters to harebrained schemes. Vance's natural timing and expressive reactions made her the perfect partner for Lucille Ball. Together, they created some of the most unforgettable comedic moments in television history. For Vivian, this was the breakthrough she had dreamed of. But as she would later admit, the success of I Love Lucy came at a steep personal cost. The fame was overwhelming, the pressures relentless, and behind the laughter, she faced struggles that no one watching from home could imagine. While the world laughed at Lucy and Ethel's antics on screen, behind the cameras Vivian Vance faced struggles that were far from funny. I Love Lucy may have catapulted her into stardom, but it also brought challenges that tested her resilience and strained her personal happiness. One of the earliest and most persistent issues Vivian battled was the way she was presented compared to her real-life persona. In truth, Vance was attractive, stylish, and only 2 years older than Lucille Ball. Yet the show deliberately dressed her in dowdy clothing and frumpy hairstyles to make Lucy stand out as the glamorous star. The producers insisted that Ethel be plain, even going as far as asking Vivian to gain weight to make the contrast more pronounced. This decision wounded her deeply. For an actress who had fought hard for recognition in a beauty-driven industry, being cast deliberately as unattractive stung her pride. Over the years, the disparity between who she was and who the world saw became a source of frustration. Vivian later admitted in interviews that she hated how audiences thought of her as old and dumpy, when in reality she was anything but. But the pressure didn't stop there. Vivian's working relationship with William Frawley, who played her on-screen husband Fred Mertz, was notoriously tense. Frawley was more than 20 years older than Vance and had a reputation for being gruff and difficult. Off-camera, their dynamic was anything but warm. Vivian reportedly resented the casting, feeling it was absurd for her character to be married to a man who could practically be her father. She voiced her frustrations openly, and Frawley, who had little patience for criticism, despised her for it. Their feud became legendary in Hollywood lore, with the two barely speaking when not in character. Ironically, their real-life dislike added a layer of authenticity to the bickering couple they played on screen. Lucille Ball, on the other hand, shared a more complex bond with Vivian. Professionally, the two were magic together, their chemistry undeniable. But off-set, their friendship went through ups and downs. At times, Lucy's strong personality and controlling nature clashed with Vivian's quieter, more sensitive demeanor. Lucy was the star, and she made sure everyone knew it, which sometimes left Vance feeling overshadowed. Yet despite these struggles, Vivian acknowledged Lucy as both her greatest ally and her most challenging colleague. The success of I Love Lucy also took a toll on Vivian's personal life. She had already gone through difficult marriages before joining the cast, and the pressures of fame made maintaining relationships even harder. Her demanding schedule, coupled with the constant public scrutiny, strained her romantic life and mental health. Friends recalled that Vivian often battled bouts of depression, feeling torn between gratitude for her success and resentment for the sacrifices it demanded. What the public didn't see was just how physically and emotionally draining the work was. The show was filmed in front of a live audience, meaning every line and every laugh had to land perfectly. The pressure to perform flawlessly week after week weighed heavily on the entire cast, but Vivian, who was often written into Lucy's outrageous schemes, bore much of the physical comedy. From slapstick pratfalls to wild chase scenes, she gave her all, even when her body ached from the demands. And yet, through it all, Vivian never let her struggles show on screen. Week after week, she delivered performances that made audiences believe in Ethel's loyalty, humor, and heart. Fans saw her as Lucy's beloved partner in crime, never suspecting that off-camera she wrestled with insecurities, professional rivalries, and personal demons. This contrast between public adoration and private pain was one of the most defining aspects of her life. Vivian Vance may have made millions laugh, but as she herself would later admit, the laughter often masked tears that no one else could see. When I Love Lucy ended in 1957, many fans assumed Vivian Vance's career would continue to soar. After all, she had become a household name and one of television's most recognizable faces. But stepping away from Ethel Mertz turned out to be far more complicated than anyone expected. For one, audiences struggled to separate Vivian from the character she had played for nearly a decade. Typecasting loomed over her career like a shadow. Casting directors frequently offered her roles that mirrored Ethel, matronly, comedic, and secondary to the star. For a woman who had once dreamed of becoming a glamorous leading lady, the limitation felt stifling. Vivian longed to prove that she was more than Lucy's sidekick, but Hollywood wasn't always willing to give her that chance. The lingering association with I Love Lucy also had an emotional toll. Though she was proud of the show's success, Vivian was determined not to let her entire identity be swallowed by Ethel. This led her to make a bold decision, one that many at the time didn't understand. She moved away from Hollywood and relocated to Connecticut, seeking a quieter life where she could regain her sense of self outside the glare of the spotlight. But even in semi-retirement, Vivian couldn't fully escape the pull of show business. Lucille Ball, recognizing how vital Vivian had been to her own success, invited her to join The Lucy Show in the 1960s. Once again, audiences delighted in seeing Lucy and Vivian together. Their chemistry hadn't dimmed, but for Vivian it was a bittersweet return. She appreciated the work, but often felt like she was stepping back into a role she had been trying to leave behind. The tension between wanting independence and honoring her friendship with Lucy weighed heavily on her. Insiders recalled how Vivian sometimes hesitated before agreeing to appear, torn between loyalty to her old friend and the desire to carve her own path. Still, she couldn't deny the magic of their partnership. Whenever Lucy needed a confidant, both on and off screen, Vivian was there. Away from acting, Vivian also faced deeply personal challenges. She had been married multiple times, and her relationships often ended in disappointment. Yet, in 1961, she found love again with literary agent John Dodds, who became her fourth husband. Their marriage provided her with a sense of stability she hadn't experienced before. Unlike many of her earlier relationships, Dodds supported Vivian through her career struggles and health battles. Still, Vivian's health soon became a central part of her story. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in the 1970s, a devastating blow that changed the course of her life. Instead of hiding her illness, she faced it with remarkable strength. Friends described her as resilient, even when the treatments took their toll physically and emotionally. Her fight against cancer became one of the defining chapters of her later years, reshaping her priorities and outlook on life. Despite the difficulties, Vivian never completely lost her sense of humor or the spark that had made her unforgettable. As Ethel, even in interviews later in life, she spoke with wit and honesty, acknowledging both the blessings and the burdens of her career. She admitted that being forever remembered as Ethel Mertz was a double-edged sword, limiting her professionally but ensuring her place in television history. Breaking free from Ethel was never fully possible, but Vivian found a way to redefine herself on her own terms. She may not have achieved the glamorous leading roles she once dreamed of, but she carved out a life filled with resilience, friendship, and quiet dignity. For Vivian Vance, independence didn't mean erasing her past. It meant embracing it, while still insisting on being seen as more than just Lucy's sidekick. By the late 1970s, Vivian Vance's health was deteriorating rapidly. Her battle with breast cancer had been long and grueling, but she faced it with the same mixture of courage and candor that had defined her life. Even as her strength waned, she remained fiercely determined to keep her dignity intact. Friends described her as someone who never allowed illness to fully steal her spirit, even when the days were hard. Vivian had always been outspoken about her experiences in Hollywood, and in her final years, she became even more candid. She no longer felt the need to sugarcoat her memories of I Love Lucy. In interviews and private conversations, She revealed the toll the show had taken on her, physically, emotionally, and personally. She admitted that while the sitcom brought her worldwide fame, it also brought deep frustrations. Being cast as the frumpy, older sidekick had crushed her self-esteem at times. She hated being paired with William Frawley, whom she felt was too old and difficult, and she resented that the producers demanded she look ordinary, while she knew she was just as vibrant and attractive as any Hollywood actress of her time. And yet, despite these wounds, Vivian never dismissed the importance of I Love Lucy. She recognized it as groundbreaking television that not only changed her life but changed the entire entertainment industry. She often said she was proud to have been part of something so enduring, even if it came with personal sacrifices. The love from fans who adored Ethel Mertz never faded, and Vivian appreciated it deeply, even when it was bittersweet. One of the most touching aspects of her final years was her relationship with Lucille Ball. Despite their ups and downs over the decades, Lucy remained by Vivian's side as her health worsened. In 1979, shortly before Vivian's passing, Lucy visited her for what would be their last meeting. According to friends, the two women embraced, laughed, and even cried together, reminiscing about the years they had shared. Lucy reportedly left the visit heartbroken, knowing she was saying goodbye to not just a co-star, but one of the most important figures in her life. When Vivian Vance passed away in 1979 at the age of 70, Hollywood mourned the loss of a woman who had brought so much joy to millions. Tributes poured in from fans, co-stars, and industry colleagues who recognized not only her talent, but her resilience. For many, her passing was also a reminder that the laughter audiences see on screen often hides struggles that remain invisible. The truth Vivian revealed in her final years paints a more complete picture of her journey. She was not just Lucy's sidekick, not just Ethel Mertz. She was a talented actress who endured typecasting, battled insecurities, and fought personal demons, all while bringing light and laughter to others. Her story resonates today because it speaks to a universal truth. Behind even the brightest smiles, there are often unspoken struggles. Vivian Vance's legacy lives on not only in reruns of I Love Lucy, but in the honesty with which she faced her life. She refused to let Hollywood or illness define her entirely. And perhaps that is the most important truth she revealed. That strength doesn't always come from success or applause, but from the courage to be real, even when the world only wants to see the laughter.